Every human being who has ever lived has died. Every single one. Kings, scientists, warriors, saints, the most powerful people in history. The richest, the smartest, the strongest. All dead. Until now. Because for the first time in the 300,000-year history of our species, there are scientists who genuinely believe that the person who will never die has already been born. And they're not talking about the distant future. They're talking about you. Here is something nobody says out loud. Aging is not natural. Not in the way you think. Your heart doesn't wear out because time passes. Your skin doesn't wrinkle because years go by. Your body breaks down because of a specific biological process. A process with a mechanism. A mechanism that can, at least in theory, be interrupted. For most of human history, we treated death the way we treated weather. Inevitable, unpredictable, beyond our control. You didn't fight it. You accepted it. You built religions around it. You wrote philosophies about it. You spent your entire life preparing for it. But here's what changed. In 1993, a molecular biologist named Cynthia Kenyon did something that should have rewritten every biology textbook on the planet. She mutated a single gene in a roundworm called C. elegans, one gene, and the worm lived twice as long as normal. Not slightly longer, twice as long. Kenyon stood in her lab and realized something that most scientists were not ready to accept. Aging wasn't just happening to these worms. It was being controlled by a gene that she had just turned off. Since Kenyon's discovery, the field has exploded, and what researchers have found is deeply unsettling, not because it's frightening, because it works. In 2020, David Sinclair at Harvard published research showing that aging is not just a collection of damage accumulating over time. It's an information problem. Your DNA contains a master backup of who you are at your biological peak. Over time, the systems that read that backup get corrupted. They start misreading the instructions. Cells forget what they're supposed to be. And that forgetting, that loss of biological identity, is what we call aging. Think about that for a second. Your body isn't running out of parts. It's losing the ability to read its own manual. Sinclair's team took old mice with deteriorating eyes, declining muscle mass, fading cognitive function. They reactivated 3 genes, OCT4, SOX2, KLF4, that are normally only active during embryonic development. The mice's eyes began to regenerate, their vision improved. Their biological age, measured at the cellular level, reversed. They weren't just healthier, they were younger. This has never happened before in the history of biology. Not like this. Not this cleanly. Not this fast. Here is something that should make you uncomfortable. The wealthiest people on Earth already know this is coming. They have known for years, and they are not waiting. Jeff Bezos has poured hundreds of millions into Altos Labs, a company whose sole purpose is cellular rejuvenation programming. Peter Thiel has funded research into parabiosis, the idea that young blood contains biological signals that can reverse aging in older bodies. Larry Ellison, the co-founder of Oracle, has donated more than $430 million to aging research over the last 2 decades. He has said publicly that accepting death makes no sense to him. These are not optimistic billionaires writing checks to feel good about themselves. These are the most ruthlessly rational people on the planet. People who spend money only when they believe returns are real. And they believe this is real. But here's the part that nobody is asking. If the technology works, and the evidence suggests it will, who gets it first? Let's say it works. Let's say that sometime in the next 30 to 50 years, aging becomes a treatable condition. You take a pill, receive a therapy, undergo a procedure, and your biological clock stops, or reverses. What happens next? The first problem is obvious. Overpopulation. Right now, about 150,000 people die every day. If that number drops to near zero, Earth's population doesn't just grow, it compounds. Every generation that stops dying stacks on top of the last. Within a century, the planet becomes something no ecosystem can support. But the second problem is darker. Power never dies. Right now, the people who control governments, corporations, and resources eventually leave. They age out. They die. New people take their place. New ideas get a chance. But in a world where the powerful never die, that rotation stops. The same people who control things today control things in 100 years, in 200 years, forever. History has never faced anything like that, not even close. And the third problem is the one nobody wants to say. What happens to meaning? The reason your life feels urgent is because it ends. The reason you love people deeply is because you know you'll lose them. The reason art exists, music exists, philosophy exists, is because humans have always been trying to make something that lasts longer than they do. Take away the ending, and you take away the urgency. You take away the weight. You take away the reason to do anything today instead of tomorrow. Philosopher Bernard Williams argued that immortality wouldn't be paradise. It would be an endless, motivationless drift. A life that never ends can never feel complete, and a life that never feels complete is its own kind of death. So where does that leave us? The science is real. The investment is real. The timeline is accelerating faster than almost anyone outside these labs understands. Aubrey de Grey, one of the most prominent longevity researchers in the world, has argued for years that aging is an engineering problem, not a biological inevitability. He believes the first person to live to 1,000 years old is probably already alive today. Most mainstream scientists think that's too optimistic. But most mainstream scientists also thought doubling a worm's lifespan with a single gene edit was impossible. Right up until it happened. What we know for certain is this: the conversation has changed. 20 years ago, serious scientists did not talk about defeating aging. They talked about managing it. Today, the most prestigious labs on the planet are not trying to slow aging down. They are trying to reverse it. That is not the same thing. That is not even close to the same thing. Here is the uncomfortable truth underneath all of this. Death has always been the one thing every human being had in common, rich or poor, powerful or forgotten, loved or alone. Everyone ended. That shared ending was the great equalizer. It was the thing that made you and the most powerful person who ever lived fundamentally the same. If that changes, if death becomes optional for those who can afford it and mandatory for those who can't, we won't just be living in an unequal world. We will be living in a different kind of world entirely, one that has never existed before, one that we are completely unprepared for. Every generation before yours has died, every single one, without exception, without choice. Yours might be the last one that has to, and nobody is asking whether that's actually a good thing.